Welcome to the Volpe Report podcast, the state's premier public affairs show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians. I'm your host, Chuck Volpe. Join us now as we speak to this week's guest.
The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is brought to you by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
We welcome back to today's show attorney Jason Richey, who is currently the Republican-endorsed candidate for Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I'll stop right there to point out that on your ballot in 2 days when you go to vote, some of you already have by mail-in, I'm sure, but the large lot of you that have not yet voted, there's only a couple of races you're going to see on your ballot that are actually contested. Both the Democratic primary and the Republican primary have a lot of incumbents running that are uncontested, so you only see one name on the ballot, including for governor of Pennsylvania. Stacey Garrity, of course, the endorsed Republican candidate for governor, is unopposed. But when you go down to the next race that you'll see on your ballot, there's going to be two names. It is a contested primary. And unfortunately for attorney Jason Richey, the Republican-endorsed candidate for lieutenant governor, he lost. They draw lots for ballot position. He finished second. So the first name you're going to see on the ballot is not his, and his is second. So I felt it appropriate to bring him back to remind people it's important for the Republican Party that he win the primary. He's the endorsed candidate. So having said that, he's back here again. His credentials for running, beside being chairman of the party of Allegheny County and completely revamping it, formerly having run for governor of Pennsylvania as well. So he's run for the highest office back in 2022. A little bit of background. I know I gave it before, but I'm going to remind you again. He grew up in Aliquippa of Beaver County, Pennsylvania, which is right on the Ohio border. He attended Hopewell Area High School, where Jason played football and wrestled. He then went on to attend Allegheny College, where he graduated magna cum laude, which earned him Phi Beta Kappa honors. Additionally, while there as an athlete, Jason became a three-time NCAA Academic All-American wrestler. After college, Richey worked his way through law school in part as a union worker at the Aliquippa Steel Mill. So talking about having touched a lot of bases. After graduating from Ohio State College of Law, where he earned his Juris Doctorate degree, he then settled into a Pittsburgh law practice. And for 3 decades, Jason has built a successful legal practice and gained a reputation as one of the toughest litigators in the country, representing business firms even in international litigation. So he's very qualified, and his name is on the ballot for lieutenant governor this Tuesday.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial. The area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Jason, welcome back to the Volpe Report.
Thanks for having me, Chuck.
My pleasure. I think I mentioned to you yesterday, and I'll tell our viewers, this is after 13 years, an unprecedented show. I've never brought a candidate back twice in about 3 weeks, as I'm doing here.
Very much appreciated.
No, and very much necessary, as we will get into. Having been a former candidate for governor of Pennsylvania, having in fact currently still are the elected by the committee county Republican chairman in Allegheny County, which is one of the most important counties for Republicans. And for my audience out there saying, what are you talking about? It's a big Democratic. We understand that. But if the Republicans don't get north of 40% and you're getting them closer to the 45 mark, then they win. If they don't get to 40% statewide, Republican candidates lose. So it's still a major. People don't realize that the vote that comes out of Allegheny County, even though it's not as much as the Democrats, is more than probably all but 2 counties in Pennsylvania.
That's right. We have 275,000 Republicans, the most of any county. I lead 95 different committees, which is just an enormous amount of committees and everything to lead in the battle. And it's necessary for us to do our part to make sure we can win statewide.
No doubt. So we get back to my little thing about why you're here again is because with those great credentials, a great litigator by reputation, I interviewed you when you were running for governor 4 years ago, and we had that conversation. It would have been a nightmare for Josh Shapiro had you been the nominee. But having said all that, you get asked to run. It's not one that you sign up. You're asked to run by my good friend, United States Senator Dave McCormick. You get asked to run by Pennsylvania State Treasurer Stacey Garrity, who will be officially this coming Tuesday the presumptive and now official nominee of the Republican Party for governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and a whole bunch of Republican chairmen from all over Pennsylvania come to you and ask you to run because you're going to be a great addition to the ticket. You will continue to be a nightmare for Josh Shapiro in that role. But having said all that, so then you decide to run. And then, of course, I put you on the show a couple weeks ago. Well, through no fault of your own, in the pure luck of the draw and the fates, they throw us curveballs from time to time, you're in a two-person race. Your race is one of, actually, I'm going to say this, one of the few contested primaries. A lot of these races, like for a Pennsylvania senator up here, both sides. Well, actually, the Democrat is contested, uncontested Republican. In the U.S. congressional seat, that's going to be a very important thing for our country. Incumbent and good friend of mine, Rob Bresnahan, is going against the mayor of Scranton, Paige Gebhardt-Cagnetti. Neither one has an opponent. So all these races, if you're a Republican, there's one name, and if they're a Democrat, usually there's one name. So I want to call attention, and that's why you're back here, to let voters know that you have a contested primary. And not only do you have a contested primary, again, through the fates and the awful grace of God, we'll say, in a drawing of lots, you end up with the short end, and you end up second on the ballot. And we know that in races people don't often know about, they just go to the first name, and who cares, and they hit the first name, which would obviously be not good. So I thought it important enough to call you back here for another show to tell voters, as I am going to continue to tell them, that this race is so important for the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. Not mentioning your opponent's name, but he comes from that area of the party that is the more radical, small percentage of the party. That we saw what Senator Doug Mastriano did to the Republicans 4 years ago as candidate for governor. He lost by a record almost 2 million votes and pretty much tanked the entire Republican ticket. So there is a lot of concern in Republican circles, including our own chairman here in Lackawanna County, that because this guy gets first ballot position, it would be bad for the party. So you're back here today to explain why you're running, what's at stake, and make sure people pay attention. When they get to the lieutenant governors, they're going down for Republicans in their ballot. They're going to see two names for lieutenant governor, and you're the second one. Take it from there.
Yeah, so as you noted, I'm second on the ballot. It will be a competitive race. I need everyone's vote, so that's very important. My opponent, although we don't really mention him, if you were to do research on his background, you would find that he is incompetent and that his background is so bad that it would stain, that Shapiro could run circles with it, and it would hurt our Senate candidates, our House candidates, our congressional candidates, as well as Stacey Garrity and the governor's run would be over. Okay. So I have been, Chuck, hustling. It keeps me up at night. I can testify. I have to get my name out there. And so I am running around. I've almost been to every county. I'm doing 2 to 3 events a day. When they all asked me to run, we didn't know about this primary and that it was going to be so critical to the Republican Party. The reason I'm running, this election, and everyone needs to understand this is the Super Bowl of Pennsylvania elections. Right. This could change the future of Pennsylvania. The Democrats, for the first time since I've been in college, have a chance to take full control of every aspect of government. Right. And they're only 2 Senate seats away from doing that. Right. And the kind of things that they have in store for Pennsylvania are the House passed a bill, abortion on demand up till the day of birth, the most liberal in the entire country. They want men and women's sports. And when we passed a bill to stop that, Shapiro called the Republicans an extremist. Okay. They filed a lawsuit to make sure kids under the age of 18 have health care so they can transition their genders, both mutilation and hormonal. And a typical increase in taxes, budget $7 billion over the amount of revenue we bring in. They want to get rid of our rainy day fund, legalize marijuana and tax it, and we know that's going to bring in the black market on drugs will go up by 5 times. I mean, it's crazy and not common sense what they want to do. Okay. And so that's one of the reasons when I was asked to get involved, I got involved because I know how important it is. The other thing that people need to understand is that we are only 2 seats from taking full control. We just need 1 House seat and this governor's seat, right, and we can put conservative economic values into play, and we will help millions and millions of people.
You know, let's take the rainy day fund. We have, from having a huge surplus, I won't say thanks to COVID, because obviously it was awful for the world and for America. But one of the results was when the incompetent, again, a previous Democratic governor, Tom Wolf, shut down our state, destroying lives, wiping out 4th and 5th generation small businesses.
Definitely.
One of the most awful periods in our history of Pennsylvania. The federal government gave literally tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars, billions with a B, to bigger states. Pennsylvania got billions of dollars of COVID relief money for what had happened to the state. And that was to be used for a rainy day, for special things, for disasters that may yet come in the future. This governor, Shapiro, has been using it to keep jacking up higher and higher our expenses and our spending and all that. And then he says, well, I didn't raise your taxes, because he's tapping into the rainy day fund, which means the next step will be to raise all of our taxes. So comment on that.
Yeah,
it's
well,
a disgrace.
First of all, on your first point, let's not forget this. What happened during COVID was horrible, and our rights and liberties were definitely negatively impacted. Josh Shapiro was the Attorney General. He's the one that's supposed to be fighting to protect our rights and liberties, and did nothing. Right. And we should not forget that, because that was a while ago, and we kind of forget who was supposed to be protecting us and who didn't. So I want to make that point. But here's the silver bullet, the thing that's been killing us. Since we've had the technology to access our natural gas, and people have to understand, we have more natural gas in our ground than most countries of the world. Huge reservoirs. If the United States could only depend on Pennsylvania for energy, we could keep it going for over 100 years, okay? Massive reserves. As you said, since we've had the technology to access it, we've been unfortunate enough to have 12 years of Wolf Shapiro. They put the governor on it. They've stopped our progress. They've stopped drilling. They've threatened carbon taxes that has prevented natural gas fire power plants from being built. So everybody in your listening audience, number one, your energy bills are higher because Josh Shapiro has been shutting down coal-fired power plants, shut down 3 Mile Island, and not allowing new generation to come in. He tries to blame others. It's his fault. But here's the thing. If we unleash and drill, baby, drill, we unleash that natural gas, we bring in new natural gas fire power plants, we build the infrastructure to connect the wells to those fire power plants, and here's the key, and we can build the infrastructure to get the natural gas to Philadelphia, to get it to the ocean, get the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard going again, and send our natural gas all over the world, making sure our NATO allies are dependent on Pennsylvania natural gas, not Russian. We do that. Our projections show we're talking $5 billion in new revenue to the Commonwealth, 250,000 jobs, many right here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And with that new $5 billion, Stacey and I are going to bring down property taxes that are killing our seniors. We are going to bring the income tax down to zero, because all an income tax does is penalize people who dare to go out and work, right, which is unacceptable. And then we've got to get rid of this death tax. Yeah. So much capital is leaving the state because people get to be about 50 or 60 years old and they go to their state planner
and they leave.
They're told, don't die in Pennsylvania, because only 5 states have it, and it's like 5% of everything you own. And not only people that have capital, but it kills our farmers. Right. Farming is a generational thing. You pass it down to the next generation, and they can't pay the tax on the value of their land, and so people are losing their farms. So we just do that, unleash power. If we did nothing else, Stacey Garrity would be the most successful governor in Pennsylvania history, because the population would start returning here. Our towns would start booming again. It makes me sick when I go all over the Commonwealth and you can literally physically see these towns dying. Yeah, unacceptable. No doubt. It's unacceptable. We need change. This election needs to be a referendum on Josh Shapiro. He just wants to talk about Trump. This is about him and his incompetence. And he is a fraud. He talks on both sides of the issues. So we need to call him out. So that's why I'm involved. I want to keep our kids here. I have 3 boys. I want them here. Right.
I can't add a word to that. And with that, Jason, we've already blown through the first half of our show. Yeah. So we'll take a commercial break, and I'll let our audience know that during this break, you're going to see the commercial that's running on television sets all over Pennsylvania, reminding them of how important this race is and that his candidacy, Jason Richey, for lieutenant governor, is critical for the Republican Party. So we're going to take a break so you can watch that commercial, and then we'll be right back.
Some choices are tough. On May 19th, you have an easy one. A former union steelworker who worked his way through law school and exposed government corruption. Jason Richey has the passion and experience to serve as lieutenant governor. John Ventry is an unelectable Republican, which likely makes him Josh Shapiro's choice. Ventry's ties to groups with racist and extreme views should automatically disqualify him. On May 19th, the choice is easy. Jason Richey for lieutenant governor.
Welcome back. Again, we're here with Pittsburgh attorney Jason Richey, the Republican county chairman of Allegheny County, and now the endorsed candidate, Republican candidate for lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He is, again, to remind you, in one of the few contested races. So for Republicans going into the ballot box this coming Tuesday, in 2 short days, that's going to be one of the races. You see 2 names. And through no fault of his own and some bad luck, he didn't get the first slot. He is in the second position, and you only get to vote for 1. So that's why an extra effort is being made by him and a lot of Republicans and county chairmen to get it out because they need him on the ballot. So having said that, Jason, back to a subject we talked briefly off air. In the most recent polls, now we're going to go circa 2026. The midterm, that the legacy media, it's a fait accompli, Democrats are going to take back the House. Well, the Republicans are +5. +5. And that's, I'm going to say, a 33-point swing from 2006. It's a 20 percentage point swing from 2018. So with all this going on, of course, they have been doing their best to try to gerrymander now. So that's also going on. Well, the interesting thing about what people don't, in the legacy media don't tell you, they just try to pull the most ridiculous, unconstitutional stunt in Virginia, where they turn that state, this 51-49, it's close, into a 10-1, 10 congressional seat to 1 for the Democrats. And the Virginia Supreme Court, a Democratic Supreme Court, struck it down because it's unconstitutional. That's how ridiculous. What people don't know is, though, why they're so frantic about the Supreme Court now came down with a decision which said you no longer can create racial districts. It was okay back in the Civil War, but that's gone. Really is. It's a phantom, this systemic racism, garbage. We should be judged by the color of our, by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. So that cost them about 12 more seats. So if you do the math, they're looking at minus 12 seats versus what they had in the past. So they're losing their minds. And while all this is going on, it seems like every week there's a major player across the state, sometimes in Congress, sometimes in state houses, all around. Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, pick one, Ohio. Democrats are switching to Republican or independent. Now, the reason I bring that up is we've had a fairly significant name in this community, a friend of mine, as I've said. I supported him, Supreme Court Justice David Wecht, a Democrat. His father was the famous Dr. Cyril Wecht, a Democrat. This is a name, especially you're from Pittsburgh, you know what the Wecht name is in Western Pennsylvania. Sure. Well, he announced yesterday he was done with the Democratic Party as well and switched independent. So with all this going on, I think that's why it's worth talking about in this show, because again, your race, the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's part of that race, is going to be significant for the future of Pennsylvania. In this notion that somehow it's running for the Democrats, nothing could be further from the truth. The Republicans are not arrogant or overconfident, but they are rightly confident that they're going to keep the House, they're going to keep the Senate, they're going to flip a seat in the State House, they're going to hold on to the Republican Senate in the State House. So your take on all of that and what that means for Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so number one, and this also impacts the governor's race. The last time that Pennsylvania won the governorship, Governor Corbett won, and the differential was 1 million more Democrats than Republicans.
Right.
As we sit here today, we are only a 50,000 difference from turning into a red state. And people are leaving the Democratic Party in droves, like the Supreme Court Justice, because this is not the old Democratic Party. This is not Hillary Clinton's Democratic Party. This is the Bernie Sanders wing.
Yeah.
And when I go out and campaign, especially in Allegheny County, we have a lot of Democrats, and I say to them, are you for abortion on demand up to the day of birth? Are you for men and women's sports? Are you for kids under 18,
Be mutilated.
Be mutilated and
Transgender.
picking, they don't know if they want to be a cowboy or an astronaut, but they're going to pick their gender in 6th grade.
And not telling the parents.
And not telling the parents. Are you for tax increases? Are you for drugs everywhere? And they're like, no, 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 no. And I say, why are you a Democrat? And the key to, I say to them, do not feel bad about leaving the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party left you a long time ago. And I know, some people, they may not like President Trump, they don't like his tweets or whatever. But the reality is we are the party of common sense. We are the party that is fighting for the middle class worker. And Josh Shapiro, the Supreme Court Justice left because of how anti-Semitic the Democratic Party has become. And he said it. Josh Shapiro, who's a Jew, doesn't say anything because it might impact him. In Pittsburgh, U.S. Steel was going to go down. Joe Biden helped try to kill it by saying that blocking the Nippon merger, which would have lost thousands and thousands of union jobs. Where was Josh Shapiro fighting for these union jobs? They're not. They don't care. If it's manufacturing, if it has any kind of pollution to it, they don't want it. This party has fundamentally changed. And I think people are coming on to it. Josh Shapiro is a leader of this far left movement. He even endorsed the governor of Virginia that has turned Virginia so far left. And if Pennsylvanians don't think it can happen here, just look at what happened 1 year ago at Virginia. Yeah. So we've got to fight, but I agree with you. I think, and I know that Stacey Garrity and Jason Richey can win the governorship back. The tide is with us. Things are changing. And I'll say this too. Don't forget, who is the number one vote getter in Pennsylvania history?
Stacey Garrity.
It's Stacey Garrity. Yeah. It's not Donald Trump, and it certainly isn't Josh Shapiro. It's Stacey Garrity. Right. She gets out the vote, and her and I are going to work our tails off to make sure we win in November.
That's a great answer. And to throw more fuel on the fire, I said this to Stacey, beside her qualifications and her wonderful, abilities, and beside her wonderful service record and decorations and Bronze Stars and the like that she's got in military service, which is another important qualification. The other advantage she has, frankly, is the fact of her gender. And why is that relevant, her being a woman? Because right now, Josh Shapiro is doing his best to cover up a dirty secret. His best friend, Mike Verb, in his cabinet, allegedly sexually harassed was a woman, a deputy secretary in the office that deals with, I think they call it the General Assembly liaison, whatever. Very important in the cabinet. The person, Mike Verb, the secretary, was dealing with the leaders, Republican in the House and Democrats in the Senate, to get the governor's agenda and budget passed. So under him are three deputy secretaries. One was a woman that he allegedly hard sexually harassed, by the way, and to the point where she quit, filed a federal lawsuit. The state paid her almost $300,000. Now, I won't say hush money, but it was a non-disclosure, confidential agreement. No one was allowed to discuss it. Now, on this show twice, Jason, and I want your comment, from Broad and Liberty is a gentleman named Todd Shepard, the chief investigative journalist. He has done op-ed pieces. The New York Times ran the story against Josh Shapiro right when he was being mentioned for vice president with Kamala Harris, and all of a sudden they announced, well, we're going in a different direction and picked Tim Walz. That probably had something to do with it. That hasn't gone away. And who better than a woman to challenge him? He killed the Catholic Church pretty much, and rightly so, for those pedophile priests, and did that thing. Well, that was like a dirty little secret. And he said, we have to uncover the truth wherever the truth leads. How about wherever the truth leads with sexual harassment in the workplace for women? So
yeah, no, I mean, he has a problem with women, clearly. And Kamala Harris talked about that in her book, about the horrible interactions that he had with her, and that she didn't think she could work with him at all. We see him trying to kill women's equality in sports. We fought for it for so long. Now he wants men in women's sports. And then you have the sexual harassment where it's I went with Stacey to Harrisburg. She laid out the case. There's been in his administration, not only the Verb case, they've laid out $3 million to settle various sexual harassment disputes.
I didn't know that.
And what is really frustrating, though, for us is that there's all kinds of media at the event, and then the next day, nothing from the Philadelphia Inquirer, nothing from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on it. In fact, the Philadelphia Inquirer ran some story about him being a point guard in high school that day. So the word's going to get out and of what this guy is about. And as I've seen him and I've looked at his history, and we're going to be laying our case out to the Pennsylvania people real soon. I mean, I don't see him as a good person.
Well, since our show is running down to its last couple minutes, you're going to get to lay it out to the Pennsylvania people right now. Your closing statement on why they should, first of all, mentioning that they have to vote you on the ballot and what's at stake for Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I need your help on December 19th or May 19th. Feels like December sometimes. But on May 19th, we need your vote. Get me over the hump. And Stacey and I are going to work like you've never seen before to change this state. As I mentioned earlier, this is going to be the Super Bowl of elections in Pennsylvania. We can go one way, which is to the far, far left, and Josh Shapiro's got a ton of money, and that's what he wants. He wants to take the trifecta. He does not care about you. When asked if he would even finish his term, if he was a reelected governor, he will not commit to that. He doesn't even want the job.
That's right, for president.
The man cares about one thing and one thing only, and that's Josh. And his goal, stated goal since he's like 4 years old, is to run for president. So while he's going to be thinking about what's going on in South Carolina, he's already spending tons of money down there, New Hampshire, Iowa, Stacey and I are going to be thinking about how do we make your lives better. And that is a huge difference. We are going to unleash our energy and natural gas, bring down your taxes, bring school choice. We are going to cut the efficiency. We're going to make the government more efficient, cut the regulations, get rid of the fraud and corruptions that's in the Pennsylvania state government. We do those things. Right now, today, U.S. News & World Report 2025, Pennsylvania is ranked 41st out of 50 in overall performance. It's pathetic. We do those three things. We will become a powerhouse. We will make the lives of every Pennsylvanian better and more affordable, and we will improve the national security of the United States of America. So I'm very excited about this. I'm all in, but I do need your help. My name's Jason Richey. Please vote for me on Tuesday.
Wonderfully said, Jason.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck. And our party, the Republican Party, that is, needs you at the top of that ticket with Stacey Garrity to give the Republican Party a chance in the state. And as you said, the aftershocks below that, if we don't run strong as a Republican Party, we'll be seen in all those races that matter. So it's your office in lieutenant governor in this primary is probably one of the most critical races on the ballot.
Yep, definitely.
We'll be back next week as our show starts to come around, third heading for home for another season in the books. One note, though, next Sunday, we will be off the air. We are preempted for good reason. The Indianapolis 500 will be broadcast on Fox, and we will not be on. But the following Sunday, we will be back on for our final couple of shows. So we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Volpe Report podcast. Be sure to visit our YouTube and Facebook pages for upcoming episodes. You can catch up on the Volpe Report podcast on your favorite podcast provider.